For years, Annabel Elliot stayed almost completely out of the public eye. Unlike many people connected to the royal family, she rarely gave interviews, avoided controversy, and never seemed interested in the spotlight. But now, reports about a private dinner conversation have sparked widespread discussion across royal watchers. According to those reports, Annabel, Queen Camilla's younger sister, allegedly made a series of personal remarks that have raised fresh questions about life behind palace walls. It is important to remember that these accounts have not been independently verified, and neither Buckingham Palace nor Annabel Elliot has publicly confirmed them. Even so, the story has gained attention because of who she is. She is not a former palace employee, a royal expert, or someone looking to promote a book. She is a close family member who has witnessed many of the most significant moments in Camilla's life, from their early years together to her becoming queen. That connection alone has made people curious about what may or may not have been said. According to several media reports, the conversation happened during what was supposed to be a private dinner with close friends in the English countryside. The evening was said to be informal, relaxed, and far from the public spotlight. Yet details from that gathering somehow found their way into the media, creating headlines around the world. One quote in particular has attracted enormous attention. Reports claim Annabel described her sister by saying, "She's not the woman the world thinks she is. She's changed. Or maybe this is who she always was." Whether those words were actually spoken remains uncertain, but they have become the center of an intense public debate. Family disagreements are nothing unusual, especially in families that live under constant public scrutiny. However, because these comments are said to have come from someone so close to Queen Camilla, many observers believe they carry more weight than the usual anonymous palace rumors. Annabel Elliot has been present throughout some of the most important chapters in modern royal history. She knew Camilla long before the world knew her name. She witnessed the years when Camilla's relationship with the future King Charles was under constant media attention, the difficult period following Princess Diana's death, the gradual rebuilding of Camilla's public image, the royal wedding, and eventually the coronation. Because she has been there through every stage, any suggestion that she may now be questioning her sister's character naturally attracts enormous interest. That does not automatically make every reported quote accurate, but it does explain why this story has spread so quickly. What makes this situation different from countless previous royal headlines is the source of the reports. Stories based on unnamed insiders or former palace staff appear regularly in the media, and many are impossible to verify. This case is different because it involves someone who has always maintained an unusually private life. Annabel has rarely spoken publicly about royal matters, which is why many people were surprised to see her name connected to such dramatic claims. According to the reports, the discussion went beyond personality differences and suggested that Queen Camilla had become increasingly focused on maintaining control over her public image. Those claims remain unconfirmed, but they have fueled online debate about how much of the Queen's transformation over the past 2 decades has been driven by careful public relations and how much reflects genuine personal change. Another reason this story has captured so much attention is the timing. King Charles continues his reign during a period when the royal family is already facing intense public interest, while Prince William and Catherine remain among the most closely watched members of the monarchy. In that environment, even an unverified report involving a senior royal's closest relatives can dominate headlines for days. Social media has amplified every claim, every rumor, and every theory, making it increasingly difficult for the public to separate confirmed information from speculation. That uncertainty has only made people more eager to understand what really happened during that private dinner. Reports also claim the conversation touched on the lasting impact of Princess Diana's story and the emotional weight carried by those who witnessed that period from within the royal circle. These reported comments have reignited discussions about one of the most difficult chapters in modern royal history. However, it is important to remember that these accounts rely on anonymous sources, and without direct confirmation from those involved, they should be treated with caution. Even so, the reports have prompted many people to revisit old questions about loyalty, responsibility, and the pressures faced by those closest to the monarchy. Whether the reported conversation happened exactly as described or not, one thing is undeniable. It has reminded the public that stories involving the royal family continue to attract enormous attention, especially when they involve people who have spent decades avoiding the spotlight. A single reported private conversation has become the focus of international headlines, proving once again that even the quietest voices can spark the loudest debates when the subject is the British monarchy. As more reports continue to emerge, the biggest question is no longer simply what may have been said, but whether any of it will ever be confirmed by the people who were actually in the room. As the story continued to spread, attention shifted from the reported comments themselves to the possible reasons behind them. For years, Annabel Elliot had been seen as one of Queen Camilla's most loyal supporters. She rarely appeared in interviews, avoided public controversy, and seemed determined to stay away from royal headlines. That is exactly why these reports caught so many people by surprise. If the accounts are accurate, many observers are now asking the same question: why would someone who had remained silent for decades suddenly speak so openly? Some royal commentators believe that years of watching events unfold behind the scenes may have changed her perspective, while others argue that private conversations can easily be taken out of context once they become public. Without confirmation, no one can say for certain what happened, but the speculation has only continued to grow. Several reports also suggest that the discussion included reflections on on Princess Diana and the lasting impact her story still has on people connected to the royal family. Diana remains one of the most admired and talked about figures in modern history, and even decades after her death, conversations about her legacy continue to shape public opinion. According to the reports, Annabel allegedly expressed regret over how events unfolded during those years. If those claims are true, they would represent a deeply personal reflection rather than an official account of history. However, because the reports rely on unnamed sources, it is impossible to verify exactly what was said or the context in which those remarks were made. The conversation has also renewed interest in Queen Camilla's remarkable public journey. There was a time when she faced intense criticism from both the media and the public. Over the years, however, that image gradually changed. Through years of public service, charitable work, and a much lower public profile, perceptions slowly evolved. Many royal experts have described this transformation as one of the most successful image recoveries in recent royal history. Supporters argue that it came through patience, consistency, and dedication, while critics believe it reflected a carefully managed communication strategy. Both views continue to be debated, and the recent reports have brought that debate back into the spotlight. Another point raised by commentators is how dramatically the media environment has changed. In the past, a private conversation among friends might never have become public knowledge. Today, however, even an unverified account can spread across the world within hours. Social media platforms, online forums, and YouTube channels quickly pick up developing stories, often repeating the same claims before they can be independently confirmed. As a result, rumors and facts can become difficult to separate, leaving audiences to decide for themselves what they believe. The reports have also led to renewed discussion about relationships within the royal family. Every public appearance, every official event, and every photograph is now being examined for possible signs of tension. Royal watchers have pointed to seating arrangements, body language, and family interactions, wondering whether they reveal anything about private relationships. While these observations often generate headlines, they are ultimately interpretations rather than evidence. Public events are carefully planned for many practical reasons, and it is impossible to know what personal conversations may or may not be taking place behind closed doors. Buckingham Palace has not commented on the reports, and that silence has become part of the story itself. The royal family has traditionally avoided responding to most rumors, choosing instead to let public attention move on naturally. Some believe that approach prevents unnecessary controversy, while others argue that silence sometimes encourages even more speculation. In this case, the absence of an official response has left room for countless theories, with commentators offering very different interpretations of what the palace's silence might mean. Meanwhile, public attention has increasingly focused on the future of the monarchy. Prince William and Catherine continue to enjoy strong levels of public support, and many people see them as representing the next generation of royal leadership. Their approach has generally been viewed as steady, modern, and focused on long-term public service. Because of that, any controversy involving other senior royals inevitably leads to comparisons, even when those comparisons may not be entirely fair. The current discussion has once again highlighted the contrast that many people perceive between different generations within the royal family, although opinions on those differences vary widely. At the heart of this story is a simple but powerful reality. When reports involve someone who has spent decades avoiding publicity, they naturally attract more attention than the usual palace gossip. Whether the reported conversation accurately reflects Annabel Elliot's views remains uncertain, but the discussion has reminded everyone how quickly a private moment can become an international headline. Until there is direct confirmation from those involved, many of the claims will remain exactly what they are today, claims that continue to fuel debate without providing definitive answers. Yet in the world of royal news, unanswered questions often keep a story alive far longer than confirmed facts ever could. As the discussion continued, attention turned to the bigger picture. Whether the reported comments are accurate or not, they have once again highlighted how carefully the public image of the royal family has been managed over the years. Every appearance, every speech, every photograph, and every public engagement is planned with great care. Royal historians have often pointed out that protecting the institution has always been one of the monarchy's highest priorities. For decades, that strategy has helped the royal family navigate scandals, personal challenges, and periods of intense public criticism. Yet stories like this remind people that no public image is completely immune to questions, especially when they appear to come from someone close to the family. Many royal commentators have also reflected on Queen Camilla's remarkable journey. Few public figures have experienced such a dramatic change in public perception. In the 1990s, she faced intense criticism and constant media attention. Years later, she stood beside King Charles at the coronation as queen. Supporters see that transformation as the result of patience, resilience, and years of public service. Critics argue that it reflects a long-term communication strategy designed to rebuild trust. Both perspectives continue to exist, and recent reports have encouraged people to revisit that debate once again. However, opinions remain divided, and there is no single explanation that everyone accepts. Another reason this story has gained so much attention is because it touches on one of the most emotional chapters in modern royal history. Princess Diana's legacy continues to influence public opinion decades after her passing. Any discussion that appears connected to her life immediately captures worldwide attention. For many people, Diana represents compassion, openness, and a willingness to connect with ordinary people in ways that changed the monarchy forever. Because of that lasting legacy, even indirect references to her often become the focus of intense media coverage. At the same time, historians continue to remind audiences that many events from that period remain complex and are viewed differently by different people. The story has also sparked conversations about trust within families, especially families living under extraordinary public pressure. Every family experiences disagreements, misunderstandings, and moments of conflict. The difference for the royal family is that even the smallest reported disagreement can become international news within hours. A private conversation that might otherwise remain between relatives suddenly becomes the subject of television debates, newspaper headlines, and millions of social media posts. That level of public attention creates enormous pressure, not only for senior royals but also for relatives who never sought a public role in the first place. Another interesting aspect is how quickly speculation can grow in the absence of confirmed information. As more online discussions appeared, new theories began circulating about private meetings, personal relationships, and behind-the-scenes decisions. Some commentators suggested these reports reflected deeper tensions within the family, while others warned against drawing conclusions without reliable evidence. This is a common pattern in royal reporting. When official information is limited, speculation often fills the gap. That does not necessarily make every theory accurate, but it explains why stories like this continue to dominate public conversation long after they first appear. At the same time, Prince William and Catherine have largely remained focused on their public duties. They have not commented on the reports, continuing their long-standing approach of avoiding public involvement in stories based on rumors or anonymous sources. Many royal observers believe this strategy helps maintain stability and keeps attention on their official work rather than ongoing speculation. Whether that silence is simply tradition or a deliberate communications decision is impossible to know, but it has become a consistent feature of how they respond to media attention. Perhaps the biggest lesson from this entire situation is how powerful a single reported conversation can become when it involves one of the world's most closely watched families. In today's digital age, information travels faster than ever before. Within hours, a story can move from private discussion to global headlines, with millions of people debating details that may never be fully confirmed. Once that process begins, separating fact from rumor becomes increasingly difficult, and public opinion often forms long before reliable evidence is available. For now, many important questions remain unanswered. Did the reported conversation happen exactly as described? Were the quotes presented accurately and in their full context? Will anyone directly involved choose to confirm or deny the reports? Until those questions are answered, the story remains one of ongoing speculation rather than established fact. What is certain, however, is that interest in the royal family shows no sign of fading. Every new report, every public appearance, and every unexpected development continues to attract worldwide attention. Whether this story eventually fades away or leads to further revelations, it has already demonstrated how one unverified conversation can spark a global debate and remind the world that, when it comes to the British monarchy, public fascination remains as strong as ever. Now the biggest question is simple: what happens next? At this point, there has been no public confirmation from Annabel Elliot and no official response from Buckingham Palace addressing the reported remarks. Until either of those things happens, much of the conversation remains based on media reports and anonymous sources rather than verified facts. Even so, the story has already had an impact because it has encouraged people to revisit old debates about loyalty, image, and the way the modern monarchy handles public perception. Whether those debates lead anywhere remains to be seen, but they have once again placed the royal family under an intense spotlight. Some commentators believe this story will fade away like many royal rumors before it. Others think it could have a longer life if new information emerges or if someone directly involved decides to speak publicly. That uncertainty is exactly what keeps audiences watching. Every public appearance by senior royals is now being closely examined. Every family gathering, every official engagement, and every statement is being analyzed for clues that might confirm or contradict the reports. In reality, body language and public appearances rarely provide clear answers, but they often become part of the wider conversation surrounding the monarchy. One thing history has shown is that the royal family has faced many difficult moments over the decades. From personal scandals to constitutional challenges, the institution has survived periods of enormous public pressure by focusing on continuity and stability. That does not mean criticism disappears, but it does show that the monarchy has repeatedly adapted to changing public expectations. Today's media environment, however, is very different from the past. News travels instantly, social media amplifies every rumor, and millions of people can form opinions long before official facts become available. That makes managing public perception more difficult than ever before. The story has also reminded many people of the lasting influence of Princess Diana. Decades after her death, her legacy continues to shape discussions about the royal family. She remains one of the most recognizable and admired figures in modern history, and any report that appears connected to her life or legacy immediately attracts worldwide attention. Whether fairly or unfairly, comparisons between different generations of the royal family continue to be made, reflecting the lasting emotional connection that many people still feel toward Diana and the impact she had on the monarchy. At the same time, public attention increasingly focuses on the future rather than the past. King Charles continues to lead the monarchy during a period of significant change, while Prince William and Catherine are widely viewed as central figures in its next chapter. Their public engagements, charitable work, and family life continue to receive strong public interest. Regardless of the speculation surrounding other members of the royal family, they have largely maintained their approach of allowing their actions to speak speak louder than public commentary. Many royal observers believe that consistency has helped strengthen public confidence in the future of the institution. Perhaps the most important lesson from this entire episode is not about one reported conversation but about how easily private moments can become global stories. Whether the reported remarks accurately reflect what was said may never be fully known. Private conversations are often remembered differently by different people, and once anonymous sources become involved, certainty becomes even harder to achieve. That is why responsible reporting requires separating confirmed facts from speculation, especially when real people and their reputations are involved. For now, there are still more questions than answers. Will Annabel Elliot ever comment publicly? Will Buckingham Palace continue its policy of silence? Or will this story slowly disappear as public attention moves to the next royal headline? No one knows. What is certain is that interest in the British royal family remains extraordinary. Every unexpected report creates fresh debate, new theories, and renewed curiosity about what happens behind palace walls. Whether this story is eventually confirmed, denied, or simply forgotten, it has once again demonstrated how closely the world watches every development involving one of history's most famous families. And perhaps that is the real story. The monarchy has always depended on a careful balance between public duty and private life. Maintaining that balance becomes increasingly difficult in an age where every rumor can reach millions of people within minutes. As audiences continue searching for answers, one thing remains unchanged: facts matter more than speculation, and history is ultimately shaped not by headlines alone but by evidence. Until more information becomes available, this story remains an example of how quickly questions can capture the world's attention, even when definitive answers are still out of reach.